Usually when we think about our desks at work, it's this incredibly mundane, perfectly safe space.
Oh, totally. It's a controlled environment.
Right. You've got your coffee mug, maybe some files. Maybe a sad little plant you're trying to keep alive.
Yeah, we like to know exactly what to expect when we sit down to, type up an email or crush some numbers.
Exactly. But imagine sitting down at your desk on your first day, organizing your pens, and knowing that the woman who sat in this exact chair doing this exact job just a few months ago,
Yeah.
well, she vanished without a trace.
Oh, wow. That's heavy.
And then imagine 18 months later, you end up murdered too.
It's just
It
terrifying.
really is. And that is the terrifying reality we are diving into today. So let's start by looking at the last normal day Mary Shotwell Little ever had. The timeline is October 14th, 1965.
Okay.
Mary is 25 years old, and she's been married for exactly 6 weeks to a man named Roy H. Little Jr.
Right.
He is a bank examiner, and, well, conveniently, he is out of town for work that night.
Yeah, the evening starts completely routinely. Mary finishes her shift at the C&S Bank. She runs some errands, goes grocery shopping, and then meets a coworker for dinner.
Right, at the S&S cafeteria in the Lenox Square Shopping Center.
Exactly.
Which, just for context for you listening, that was a massive open-air mall back then, much darker and more exposed than the enclosed mega malls we think of today.
Precisely. It was a different layout entirely. So after dinner, she does a little more shopping. And at about 8 p.m., she walks out into that massive, dimly lit parking lot toward her brand new car.
It was a metallic pearl gray 1965 Mercury Comet, right?
That's the one. And that walk to the car is the last confirmed sighting of Mary. She never makes it home.
But knowing she was taken doesn't even begin to explain the incredibly bizarre psychology of this scene. To understand that, we have to look at the timeline of the car itself.
Right. The car is key.
Because when her boss and the police finally locate that metallic gray comet at noon the next day, it is sitting in the exact same parking lot.
Just sitting there.
Yeah, and the groceries she bought are still inside. But here is the contradiction that I just cannot wrap my head around.
The clothes.
Yes, her undergarments, her slip, panties, and girdle, they're folded on the console between the front bucket seats, neatly folded.
Which is so strange.
But then her bra is just tossed on the floor next to a single stocking that has been deliberately cut with a knife. Her keys, her purse, her olive green dress, and her London fog coat are completely missing.
And that neat, almost methodical folding is directly juxtaposed with a chaotic, violent scene.
Right, because there's blood.
There are specks and smears of blood on the seats, on the windows, and even on that folded underwear. The lab confirmed it all matched Mary's typo blood.
Wow.
To top it off, there is an unidentified bloody fingerprint left right on the steering wheel.
Okay, let's stop and unpack this. Because the actual mechanics of that scene, folding a slip and a girdle takes time. And it usually takes 2 hands.
Right, it's deliberate.
You don't take the time to delicately fold laundry in the middle of a violent, panicked kidnapping where blood is being smeared across windows.
No, you really don't.
Those 2 actions, the methodical folding and the violent bleeding, they just don't belong in the same psychological profile. It's like a criminal trying to stage a tidy theatrical crime scene.
Like a fake sexual assault, maybe?
Exactly. But completely botching the violent reality of it.
And that staging theory becomes even more credible when we look at the mechanical timeline of the vehicle.
Oh, the mileage logs?
Yes, because this car wasn't just sitting in that parking space all night while a struggle happened inside. Mary's husband, Roy, kept meticulous to the mile logs of the car's mileage for business tax purposes.
Which I usually roll my eyes at people who track every single mile they drive. But in this one specific scenario, that habit is incredibly important.
It changes the entire investigation. Investigators checked the odometer on the dashboard against Roy's paper logs at home.
And what did they find?
They found exactly 41 unaccounted-for miles on that car.
Wow.
Furthermore, a traffic cop who patrolled that specific zone of the Lenox Square parking lot at 6:00 a.m. swore the Comet was not there.
Wait, really?
Yep. He said the lot was completely empty except for one other unrelated vehicle that had been left overnight.
Okay, wait. Let's trace this. So whoever took Mary at 8:00 p.m., drove the car away, committed whatever violent act left her blood everywhere, and then intentionally brought a blood-stained vehicle back to a public mall parking lot in broad daylight.
That is the only logical conclusion. They returned the car to the point of abduction to muddy the waters.
That is so brazen.
And while that car is sitting in Atlanta on a Friday morning, causing this localized panic for the police,
Yeah.
a completely different part of this conspiracy is unfolding hundreds of miles away.
This is where the geography of the case just completely shatters the idea of a lone stalker. Because while the comet is being returned to Lenox Square, Mary's gasoline credit card is actively being used to buy gas in North Carolina.
And we have to pause here to explain how a credit card transaction actually worked in 1965.
Yeah.
Because it is crucial to understanding the audacity of the perpetrator.
Right, it wasn't like today.
Exactly. Today, you just tap your phone or insert a chip in silence and a digital ping hits the server. It's totally invisible. But in 1965, using a credit card was a loud physical event.
You're talking about those heavy mechanical, like Kurt-Junk imprinters.
Exactly those. The gas station attendant takes your physical card, places it into a metal sled,
Right.
puts a carbon copy paper receipt over it, and forcefully slides a heavy roller across it to physically imprint the raised numbers onto the paper.
It's a whole process.
It really is. Then the customer has to take a pen and physically sign the receipt. It takes time. It forces an interaction between the attendant and the buyer.
Which means they have to look at each other.
Exactly. It leaves a definitive physical paper trail that you cannot erase.
Which makes the witness accounts from these gas stations just absolutely harrowing.
They really are.
The sources show the first use of the card happens between midnight and 2:00 a.m. in Charlotte, North Carolina, which is roughly 260 miles away from Atlanta.
Right.
The attendant describes a woman matching Mary's description, bruised and actively bleeding from a head wound. And she signs that physical carbon copy receipt as Mrs. Roy H. Little, Jr.
Just incredible.
The attendant actually noted she was lying down in the front seat, trying to hide her damaged face with a road map. And she was accompanied by an unshaven man.
Then the timeline stretches in a way that is incredibly suspicious.
Right.
Because 12 hours later, that same credit card is used again in Raleigh, North Carolina.
Which is so far away.
Well, Raleigh is only about a 3 to 4 hour drive from Charlotte, even on the highways back in 1965.
Right, but the transaction was 12 hours later.
Exactly. At that second stop, the woman now has a bloody towel wrapped around her head. There is visible blood on her legs, and she is being tightly controlled by one, possibly two men.
But if it's only a 4-hour drive, what were they doing for the other 8 or 9 hours? I mean, you don't just pull over and take a nap with a bleeding hostage.
You do if you have a safe house.
Ah.
The geography tells a story of a coordinated, multi-person conspiracy. They had a place to hide, and more importantly, they had a division of labor.
Oh, because of the car in Atlanta.
Yes. We know one person had to drive the Mercury Comet back to Lenox Square on Friday morning to delay the police response, essentially making it look like Mary never left the mall.
Meanwhile, a completely separate team is taking Mary north in a different vehicle.
Right, which witnesses in North Carolina noted had stolen license plates.
Okay, but this brings me back to the physical credit card machine. If you are a coordinated team operating a safe house and using stolen plates, why use a traceable credit card at all?
It's a huge risk.
It is. Why hand over a piece of plastic that prints a physical record of exactly where you are and when?
Right.
Unless, of course, the people who took her didn't care if she left a trail, because they knew she'd never be found alive to testify against them.
It is a dark realization, but logically it's the most sound conclusion. They weren't hiding her from the world, they were transporting her to an endpoint.
Wow.
And unfortunately, Mary's endpoint is where the second chapter of this mystery begins. Because Mary isn't the only victim in this story.
Right. We have to talk about that desk at the CNS Bank. Enter Diane Marie Shields.
Yes.
She is 22 years old, and she literally takes over Mary's job. She sits in Mary's chair. And the parallels between these two women are deeply unsettling.
They really are.
Diane actually lived with Mary's former roommates for a time. But what really gets me are the days leading up to their respective attacks.
Right, the warning signs.
Yeah, the sources indicate that both women received mysterious phone calls at work that left them visibly terrified. And both of them received surprise bouquets of red roses at the office.
Roses are such an intimate, specific gesture. They aren't generic workplace flowers, you know.
No, not at all.
They imply a level of intense, almost invasive attention. And that attention culminated on May 19th, 1967.
Which is 18 months after Mary vanishes.
Exactly. Diane has actually left the bank by this point and is working a new job at Associated Industries of Georgia.
Yeah.
She leaves work on a Friday evening at 5:03 p.m. Hours later, at 2:30 a.m., she is found dead.
And the brutality of her murder is a stark contrast to the mystery of Mary's vanishing. I mean, Diane's body was stuffed into the trunk of her own car, which was parked at a coin-operated laundromat in East Point.
Right.
She was strangled with either a Venetian blind cord or a telephone wire, and the coroner noted it was done with immense force, like 5 times the force necessary to kill a person.
It was incredibly violent.
The killer actually shoved her headscarf and pages ripped from a phone book down her throat.
Wow.
But just like with Mary, there was no robbery. Diane's diamond engagement ring was still on her finger. Her purse was in the trunk with her. The autopsy showed no signs of sexual assault. It was pure, deliberate elimination.
When you have a crime this specific, you have to rely on advanced analytical frameworks to cut through the noise.
Right.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this is where a tradecraft library for intelligence analysts called the Intelligence Shop comes in.
Okay, yeah.
They ran an analysis of competing hypotheses, or ACH, on Diane's case.
Now, I found this part of the sources fascinating, but I need you to explain how an ACH actually works. Because it's not just a standard police whiteboard with string, right?
No, not at all. An ACH model doesn't work like a standard police investigation where a detective gets a favorite theory and tries to find evidence to prove it.
Which just leads to confirmation bias.
Exactly. Instead, an ACH matrix maps out all the evidence on one side, like the diamond ring left on her finger, the phone book pages, the extreme force,
Okay.
and then all the possible theories on the other side. Then you use the evidence to systematically disprove the theories.
Ah, so instead of proving who did it, you use logic to destroy the impossible scenarios until you are just left with the truth.
Precisely.
Like a random mugger theory gets completely destroyed by the presence of the diamond ring and the purse left at the scene.
Right.
A copycat killer theory gets destroyed because the methods strangulation versus abduction are completely different.
Exactly. The model forces you down the only mathematically logical paths. And the ACH matrix for Diane's murder pointed strongly toward 3 remaining possibilities.
Which were?
An affair partner trying to silence her, an enraged fiancé, or an information lure.
And that information lure is where this case just blows wide open for me. Because Diane had been telling her best friend, Gail, a very dangerous secret.
Yeah.
Diane claimed she was secretly working undercover with the police to solve Mary's case.
Which is wild.
It is. Now, the Atlanta police vehemently denied this. They stated on the record that Diane was absolutely not working for them in any capacity. But Diane believed it. She told her friend she was gathering clues.
She really thought she was on the case.
Yeah. So if we look at those red roses and the mysterious phone calls, what if they weren't from a stalker? What if they were from someone pretending to have clues about Mary, luring Diane into a fatal trap?
It perfectly explains her behavior. It explains why she would willingly meet someone outside of work and why she was so uncharacteristically secretive in the days leading up to her death.
Right.
She thought she was being a hero, solving a mystery, but she was actually gathering intelligence on the exact people who orchestrated Mary's disappearance. She made herself a threat.
Which brings us to the massive systemic question here. Why these 2 women? What did a couple of 20-something bank secretaries know that made them targets for such coordinated, brutal violence?
Right. They weren't detectives, they were typists.
Exactly. And to answer that, we have to look closely at the institution connecting them, Citizens and Southern Bank.
Because the C&S Bank in the 1960s wasn't just a friendly neighborhood branch where you cashed a check. Its leadership was deeply intertwined with Atlanta's financial elite and massive real estate developments.
Okay.
And the deep dives from the Web Sleuths community highlight a very dark shadow over the bank's operations, specifically involving a man named Elliot L. Haas.
Yeah.
Haas ran a firm that did significant business with CNS, and he was actively investigated by the FBI for a massive insurance kickback scheme.
And the person receiving those kickbacks is the key to everything. It was Alan Dorfman. For anyone who doesn't know 1960s mafia lore, Alan Dorfman was Jimmy Hoffa's point man for the Teamsters Union. He controlled the Central States Pension Fund, which the Chicago outfit essentially used as their own personal piggy bank.
Right, because the mafia couldn't just walk into a normal bank and get a legitimate loan to build a mob-controlled casino in Las Vegas.
Right. They needed clean money.
They needed to launder the money and legitimize the loans. Dorfman was the architect of those loans, approving hundreds of millions of dollars for mob real estate projects.
Think of a major bank like a municipal water plant. On the surface, it's pumping clean water, legitimate loans and mortgages out to the suburbs of Atlanta.
Okay, I see where you're going.
But if you have access to the underlying plumbing, like Elliot Haas did,
Yeah.
you can attach a secondary hidden pipe. You're suddenly siphoning massive amounts of that legitimate clean capital directly into the Chicago outfit's bucket to build the Atlanta Cabana Hotel or Vegas casinos.
That's a great analogy.
And you need a secret ledger to keep track of that dirty plumbing. If a secretary like Mary, and later Diane, accidentally opens the wrong file drawer and checks the wrong pressure gauge on that secondary pipe, she becomes a massive liability to extremely dangerous people.
And this organized crime theory isn't just speculation. It is corroborated by a fascinating FBI file from 1966.
Oh, the confession.
Yeah. An inmate named Larry Stargell, who was looking to make a deal, told the FBI that a known violent criminal named Jerry Mason led a 5-man team to kidnap Mary Shotwell Little.
Wow.
Stargell claimed these 5 men were paid $5,000 each by an unnamed Atlanta big shot to make Mary disappear.
And $5,000 in 1965 is equivalent to about $50,000 today.
Right.
That is $250,000 spent just to eliminate a secretary.
It really shows the scale of the threat she posed. But the most compelling detail from Stargell's confession is the location.
Safe house.
Yes. He said the kidnapping team held Mary at a property in Mount Holly, North Carolina. Mount Holly is just outside of Charlotte. It perfectly aligns with the midnight gas station sightings. The geographic dots connect perfectly.
They really do.
Yeah.
But I have to push back on this because there is one piece of the puzzle that still just doesn't fit the mafia profile for me.
Okay, what's that?
If this was a highly paid professional mob hit orchestrated by Chicago and Atlanta elites, why the incredibly messy staging with Mary's underwear in the Comet?
Right. It seems counterintuitive.
The mafia usually makes people disappear, or they shoot them on the street to make a public point. Taking the time to fold up a girdle on a center console, slicing a single stocking, and smearing blood around feels so bizarrely personal.
It does.
It feels like a crime of passion, not a corporate assassination.
It absolutely feels contradictory at first glance.
Yeah.
It lacks the clinical efficiency we associate with professional hits.
Yeah.
But we have to look at the history of organized crime tactics. Mob hits are frequently highly staged to send a very specific message to other insiders, or, more commonly, to deliberately distract the police with a false narrative.
Oh, like pointing the police toward a fictional serial killer.
Precisely. In fact, just a year after Diane's murder, in 1968, a known Detroit mob enforcer named Robert Dunaway was found murdered and stuffed into the trunk of his car at the Atlanta airport.
No way.
Yes. Staging a body in a car trunk just like Diane, or staging a car to look like a sexually motivated crime of passion like Mary, is a known, documented distraction tactic.
That is wild.
It keeps the local police looking for a lone, deviant stalker instead of pulling the thread that leads back to a massive corporate conspiracy and a Teamsters pension fund.
Wow. Okay, when you lay out the mechanics of it like that, it is staggering. We are looking at 2 young women who were just starting their lives in a booming city. Whether they were targeted by a spurned lover with immense resources who managed to evade detection, or whether they accidentally opened the wrong ledger and got caught up in a terrifying multi-million-dollar bank scandal, the tragic reality is that they were hunted.
They absolutely were.
And the perpetrators used the chaotic, growing backdrop of 1960s Atlanta to just vanish into thin air.
And it is vital to acknowledge the limits of our modern investigative tools here.
Yeah.
We cannot rely on modern DNA testing to magically solve this case.
Right, it's too late.
The physical evidence, the folded slip, the steering wheel fingerprint, the cut stocking, is either degraded, lost to time, or was never properly collected in a way that preserves it for today's technology.
That's so frustrating.
But what we do have is the relentless, rigorous work of civilian researchers, podcasters like The Fall Line, and cold case detectives who refuse to let these women be forgotten. They keep the pursuit of truth alive by running these old files through new analytical frameworks.
So what does this all mean for you listening at home? Beyond being a fascinating historical mystery, it is a stark reminder of how information works.
Exactly.
What we know, what we think we know, and who we choose to tell it to, that information, can be our greatest asset, or it can be our most dangerous liability. These women knew something, even if they didn't fully realize how dangerous that knowledge was to the people around them.
And that concept of dangerous information raises an important question to leave you with today.
Yeah,
We established earlier that Diane Shields was not actually working undercover for the police. There are no official records, no handlers, nothing.
right.
But she truly, deeply believed she was. If Diane's killer wasn't a mafia hitman protecting a secret bank ledger and it wasn't a crazed ex-fiancé,
Oh.
is it possible the killer convinced Diane that they were the police?
Oh, wow.
Did the killer recruit Diane to, quote-unquote, help solve her predecessor's murder, manipulating her own courage and desire for justice into the exact weapon used to silence her?
That is a profoundly haunting thought. To think she walked into a trap built entirely out of her own good intentions and her desire to help a woman she barely knew.
Yeah.
It really makes you look at your own desk, your own daily routine, and wonder what shadows might be hiding just out of sight. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the source material. Stay curious, keep questioning the shadows, and we'll catch you next time.